Oops.
Can you unmute me? Oh, there you go.
I just did.
Thank you. It's going to be a sign language service option today. Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay Johnson, and I am the service leader today. And I'm so glad to see everybody on this kind of dreary, rainy Sunday. Let me start with just a couple of announcements. Betsy, I was just going to start off with the service auction. Do you want to talk about it since you are better at that than I, or I can? Oh, wait. Can somebody unmute Betsy?
Yep.
Thank you. Go ahead, Betsy.
Okay. Alan's done an absolutely terrific job of designing this online auction. So a couple of days before the auction, you will get a tutorial that he's made up to tell you how to work it. And I think you're going to be really, really impressed with what he's done. So be on the lookout for that. It'll start off with a Zoom party on Saturday, September 26th at 7 p.m. and I hope you'll all join. We have auctioneers that are going to be showing off some of our items up for bid and making sure that we all have a good time for the hour before the bidding started. So please check in and hope we'll see you there.
Thank you, Betsy. If anyone does have any questions when it comes up, then be sure and ask Alan because he is our computer wizard. And but I think, as Betsy mentioned, the tutorial will help all of us make sure that we understand. The one thing I did want to highlight too, Betsy, is that if we want to have somebody who wouldn't naturally get, in other words, another a member or friend on our regular rotation of GNH mailings or e-mailings, if you want somebody else to be on the list to get a entry passcode, then to please let Betsy and Alan know and how you know them so that we can include them in the list for the tutorial. And is there a deadline for when you want people to say that, Alan?
No set deadline. I mean, the sooner the better, but if need be, we could add people even during the auction, although it would be nice if everyone could be in before it starts.
Okay, great. Great. So just remember the Zoom party to kick it all off. We'll hopefully as many of us as possible can be on that evening, and it should be an awful lot of fun. So Alan and Betsy and all of Betsy's committee, thank you so much. I've never done an online auction before, and so I'm actually very excited to try that out. The other thing I wanted to be sure and mention is that next Sunday, our own Anne McCracken is speaking, and the name of her program was called A Trip to Ireland. But the most particular reason I wanted to highlight it is that she's included in the information that she sent out a recipe for Irish soda bread. And since we're not all together, we need to either make our own or find somebody else who's making it and get some from them so that we can all have a proper cup of tea and Irish soda bread to go along with Anne's wonderful talk. So we have plenty of time. We have a full week to get together. I am going to make some, so if anybody doesn't have some, I'm happy to drive some over to you. So just let me know. But that's one of the things that's really important. Then the other reminder is the last Sunday of this month, which is the 27th, we're actually going to do a joint service with Heritage UU on their Zoom. Now we'll still get it in the course of our regular information on Thursday, but that link will actually go to their Zoom and we'll all be on a big Zoom together. So I think that'll be fun. And then a reminder for anyone who hasn't finished doing their little choir version of their own song, please make sure that you do so that we can get it to Michael right away so he can create our own little choir. And I'm just going to show you for a minute. I don't know if you can see that from my computer, but that's what it looks like. It says Golden Raisin Soda Bread. So just be sure and find that. And as I say, if anyone wants to have some of mine, I'll drive it over to them. And then the only other thing that I really wanted to mention in announcements is that the nominating team is working on nominations for the Board of Trustees. And the Board of Trustees that are rotating off are Ralph, Suzanne, and Sue Klein. The ones that remain will be Sean Harris, Sally Ann Killian, and Koa Lewis. So if anybody can think of or is willing to volunteer, please do talk to the nominating committee so that we have some additional willing leaders who are willing to step in and lead for the next unusual year ahead of us. Okay, so ding. We're actually going to shut off our cell phones and put ourselves in worship mode and get started with this morning's service. So first off, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank everybody for making the effort to come this morning, and remind you that one of the real benefits of Zoom meetings, Zoom Sundays, are that we can be anywhere and still do them. And so I just strongly recommend that we remind all of our members and friends that they can dial in from everywhere, because it sure is great, at least for me, to see everybody on Sunday mornings. And we're going to start up this morning by lighting our chalice. Is there a video, Michael, or?
There is a video I have of chalice lighting.
Okay.
I just have to find it. I'm sorry. There it is. Okay, I found it. I'm so sorry. I should have been prepared. I was not. Okay. So sorry. So sorry.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Thank you, Michael. And now as we move into our prelude, where we would normally rise and drop stones into our bowls, please make sure and take the time to reflect on your week and reflect on your family and friends, and think about just how we can open our hearts and minds for an amazing week going forward. Go ahead, Michael. Thank you, Michael. That was really lovely. I'd like to move now to our opening words. According to Benjamin Franklin, it is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. And now we're going to sing together I Know I Can, which is hymn number 1015 in the Teal hymn book, if anyone has it with them, or I think Ellen will probably put the words up on the screen.
Yeah, I've got the words. So
Oh, you've got the words.
yeah. So we don't know this hymn that well, but listen to it. I really want, I think it's fun to sing along at home, even if you can't have your mic on and everything. But so I think you'll catch on to the pattern of this song really quickly, because it's kind of like a gospel tune and it kind of like does the same thing over and over and over. So I think you'll catch on, but this is a really good one. I want to start singing this one more. I kind of discovered it this week and I really like it.
Though days be dark with storms and burdens weigh my heart, though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can't go on when sorrow heals my soul and burdens make me strong. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. When hope awaits at every turn, I know I can go on, I can go on.
Excellent, Michael. Thank you so much. And now if we could all join together in repeating our unison affirmation. We pledge to create a welcoming community that celebrates human diversity, encourages spiritual growth, fosters responsiveness to our world, and commits to the future of all children. As we get ready to listen to Doug's message, values-based resistance to authoritarianism, I couldn't help but add in one small note that kind of runs in parallel to our opening words. And that was one of the first, growing up as a UU, you often heard a lot of UU jokes. And one of the George Carlin lines that has stuck with me, and I think as UUs we should wear proudly, is welcome to our UU church. all your answers questioned here. So without any further ado, let's hear Doug and values-based resistance to authoritarianism. Doug?
Good morning, and thank you for being a part of another one of our Zoom Sunday services, mostly held from our homes. But as we did last Sunday, or as I did last Sunday, I'm again here in the GNH sanctuary. This will be my last time for at least a month or two before I'll be back. Our services are not always perfect, but because of that, I think they have a charm that's reflective of the challenging times in which we find ourselves. Zoom services are, of course, not easy to pull off, especially with GNH's limited technology budget. But I think we still bring meaning and inspiration to one another. Michael and I and service leaders and our behind-the-scenes tech people helping to produce the services, and of course all of you in your participation and offering joys and sorrows, and also occasionally during talkback times. Now I'm speaking to you this morning by video recording. As you hear this, I am in the mountains of Colorado with Keith, and we're visiting my two daughters who live in Denver. Every year, I take just 2 weeks to completely sign off from work and figuratively recharge my batteries. It was wonderful and has been wonderful this past week being at GNH and seeing several members for socially distant and safe lunches and some other events. I really very much miss all of you. And I will regularly return here to GNH during the upcoming or several months more pandemic closing of our church building. Now, my message this morning is entitled Values-Based Resistance to Authoritarianism. Now, most of you have heard of Pontius Pilate, who ruled over ancient Israel around 30 CE, Common Era, and was the leader who allowed for Jesus' torture and execution. His name, of course, is today regularly repeated in the Christian Apostles' Creed, which reads in part, Jesus suffered under Pontius Pilate. He was crucified, died, and buried, end quote. Now, Pilate is mentioned in the Bible, and he's also briefly mentioned in a fictional historical book written by the historian Josephus, who lived about 30 years after Jesus. There are also stone tablets dating from around that time with Pilate's name engraved on them. And so, in other words, Pontius Pilate was, like the human Jesus, an actual person. As the Roman governor of Israel, Pilate exercised absolute power. Roman leaders of conquered nations were asked to do two things: prevent rebellion and ensure that Rome made lots of money from the conquered territory. Roman governors ruled with iron fists, even as they granted just a little bit of minor power to local elites. For instance, Rome appointed Jewish collaborators to be their tax collectors and allowed them to overcharge on taxes and keep the extra money. Tax collectors were therefore synonymous in ancient Israel with greed and evil. They were considered the worst of sinners since they cooperated with the Romans and got rich as a result. Matthew, one of Jesus' apostles, was supposedly a former tax collector who changed his ways after meeting Jesus and hearing his teachings. Now, Pontius Pilate's rule over ancient Israel defines authoritarianism. In any authoritarian government, one person, usually a man, has total power to rule as he desires. His often arbitrary orders are enforced by the police and by the military. Authoritarian rule is often oligarchical, meaning power and succession are limited to only those within the leader's family or close circle of friends. Any opposition to most authoritarian rulers is ruthlessly suppressed. Vladimir Putin, president of Russia, is a modern-day authoritarian leader who violently eliminates his opponents and ensures his authority by allowing a few key supporters to become immensely wealthy. By understanding ancient Roman authoritarianism in ancient Israel, we can better understand the historical Jesus. He was a popular social justice advocate who resisted Roman leaders and Jewish collaborators. He was revolutionary in those with whom he advocated for. He advocated for women, criminals, the other abled, poor people, non-Jews, and lepers. At the end of his life, he was therefore hated by all of the elites, by the Romans, by Jewish wealthy elites, by rabbis, by conservative Jews called the Pharisees, all because of his moral opposition to how they treated common people. And he was executed for being a rebel. Now, Jesus' life and teachings have thus been interpreted as models for nonviolent resistance against authoritarianism. Many historians see the historical Jesus as someone who tried to change systems of oppression, not by violence or political activism, but by appealing to humanist values of compassion, respect, decency, and equity for all. By teaching these values and by personally practicing them, Jesus became hugely popular and a threat to Roman and Jewish elite authoritarian power. As the Bible says of Jesus the rebel, quote, "He has brought down rulers from their thrones and raised up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away with nothing," end quote. In that regard, Jesus is an excellent model for resistance against authoritarianism. His story has been symbolically applied to real and fictional lives of other resistors throughout history, people who sacrifice themselves to non-violently oppose oppressive authorities. One film that applied Jesus-like resistance themes in its story is the 1967 Paul Newman movie entitled Cool Hand Luke. Many of you may have seen it. Like many people during this pandemic, I've enjoyed watching internet streamed documentaries and critically acclaimed classic movies from many years ago that I'd not seen. Cool Hand Luke is considered one of the best films ever made, with a 100% favorable rating among film critics. And the Library of Congress in 1995 selected it for its National Film Registry of culturally important American movies. Paul Newman was nominated for the Best Actor Academy Award, and most critics consider his performance in the film the best of his long career. But more than the film's many accolades, however, is its message of support for those who oppose authoritarian oppression. In many ways, it was tailor-made. The movie was tailor-made for our current times of protest against political, racist, and economic abuse of power. Cool Hand Luke premiered in 1967 at a time of anti-war and civil rights protests throughout our nation. Blacks were peacefully protesting against the discriminatory systems of white authoritarian power. And young people protested against the authoritarianism of President Lyndon Johnson and America's military leaders, who were sending and sacrificing the lives of the young men to and in Vietnam. They were drafted to fight against forces in Vietnam who were themselves attempting to end authoritarian rule in that nation. And so Cool Hand Luke, the film Cool Hand Luke, brilliantly depicts the essence and the power of Jesus' teachings to oppose authoritarianism. Indeed, it's a modern retelling of the Jesus story, a fight between good and evil, but with the good and bad guys acting out based on different assumptions. It's the persons who are considered criminals or bad, Jesus and Luke, who are in truth the decent and moral ones. It's the authority figures, who in most stories are the good guys, are instead, in Cool Hand Luke and the Jesus story, the evil, bad, and manipulative ones. Luke, played by a young Paul Newman, is sentenced to 2 years of hard labor in a chain gang, working somewhere in the rural South. His crime, vandalizing parking meters. And this work camp to which he was sentenced was very harsh. Inmates daily toil under a broiling hot sun, maintaining local roads. The camp is ruled by a man simply known as the boss. He's supported by guards who obey his every command. Luke is a handsome, blue-eyed young man who arrives at the prison with youthful swagger. Even though he's told the camp's rules by the authoritarian boss, he quickly makes it clear he will not surrender to unjust authority. When the muscular and much larger prisoner who acts as leader of all of the prisoners, when he challenges Luke to a boxing match to enforce his superiority, Luke suffers a repeated and quite bloody pummeling. He's injured and beaten to the ground multiple times, but Luke continually gets back up to continue fighting. Other prisoners beg him to surrender from the boxing match, but Luke refuses. He will not submit to unjust authority, no matter how much he suffers. And from that and other elements in the story, it's clear the Luke character was intended to be a Jesus-like figure. He wins the admiration of his fellow prisoners because of his resistance to the boss, because of his charm, and because of his wit. He wins poker games with friendly bluffing. He devises a way for the chain gang to efficiently finish its hard labor early, so the prisoners can then rest for a full 3 hours, which was a huge luxury to them. Luke, in the eyes of his fellow inmates, is a hero to whom they look up to and follow. And to entertain and inspire his fellow prisoners, Luke volunteers one day to take on a very odd challenge of eating 50 hard-boiled eggs within under an hour. The 50 eggs symbolically represent the 50 prisoners in his chain gang. But his suffering from this eating challenge adds to his comparison with Jesus. When he does successfully complete the challenge and eat 50 eggs in under an hour, his stomach is dangerously bloated. And he's so sick after the challenge that he's laid out on a wooden table with his arms outstretched and his ankles overlapping, as if he's been nailed to a cross. For the benefit of the people, his 50 fellow inmates, Luke sacrifices himself. Most of all, Luke confronts the authoritarianism of the work camp boss. He refuses to submit to the boss's unjust rule. When Luke's mother dies, the boss refuses to let Luke attend her funeral. To add insult, he orders that Luke be put in a small solitary confinement cell so that he won't harbor any ideas of escaping and attending his mother's funeral. When Luke is released from solitary confinement a day after his mother's funeral, he goes ahead and escapes anyway. He's caught and placed back in the solitary confinement box for several months. But before he's put in it, the boss assembles all of the 50 chain gang prisoners and utters the famous line for which the movie is known. And most of you have probably heard this line. Quote, "What we have here," the boss says, "is a failure to communicate." End quote. The boss implies that it is Luke who has failed to understand the rules and that he will be ruthlessly punished until he hears the intended communication of authority. Luke, however, has clearly heard that communication. He just refuses to accept it. Luke perceives the injustice of arbitrary authority, and he non-violently resists it by escaping. The boss's failure to communicate statement captures the anger and the frustration that many tyrants at some point feel. They're used to being feared and obeyed. And so when they're not, they lash out with greater evil when they're confronted by people who non-violently resist them. They know that their authoritarian actions lack moral standing. So they are even more violent and more angry against resistors who act morally. It's a timeless pattern, one that the Romans and that Pontius Pilate used against Jesus, that the British used against Mahatma Gandhi and other Indian resistors to British colonialism, and that Sheriff Bull Connor of Alabama used against Martin Luther King, John Lewis, and other black protesters during civil rights marches. And one, of course, that in the film Cool Hand Luke, the fictional boss employs against Luke. Naked violence is used against non-violent resistors. But that only enhances and highlights the decency and the goodness of peaceful protesters and their causes. Time and again, Luke escapes as a way to resist the boss's authority. But he's repeatedly caught and tortured. After one escape, Luke is ordered to dig his own grave and fill it back in over and over and over until Luke is almost literally killed by the work effort. During Luke's final escape, one which at first is successful, Luke enters a very small rural church late at night. He kneels in a pew and pleads with God, asking her why she has cruelly abandoned him. He's not hurt anyone, he tells God. He's acted decently and non-violently against laws that send people to chain gangs for minor and trivial offenses, and rules that deny compassion to a son who has lost his mother. Just as Luke finishes his prayer, however, the church is surrounded by police cars. Luke has been betrayed by the leader of the prisoners. That prisoner, of course, is Luke's Judas. Without giving away too much of the climactic conclusion, Luke, like Jesus, is murdered. His church prayers just before he dies echoes the anguish pleas of Jesus from the cross that you can read about in the Jesus story in the Bible. When Jesus says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" For Christians, of course, God did not forsake Jesus on the cross. Instead, God allowed Jesus to defeat Pontius Pilate's authoritarianism and his own death by resurrecting from the dead and assuming godlike status. For Luke, in the film Cool Hand Luke, much the same happens. It seems as if God has abandoned Luke in his hour of greatest need, but in truth, she did not. Dead but not defeated, Luke has a resurrection all his own. Death was his ultimate escape, an ultimate form of resistance against authoritarianism. The boss does not win. And the esteem that the prisoners then hold for Luke's memory and his actions are proof that authoritarianism never wins. And like many people, perhaps like some of you, I'm very afraid of what our nation's upcoming election will bring. I'm afraid of encroaching anti-democratic forces that believe authoritarian rule is the answer to our nation's problems. Sadly, I believe too many people on both the left and the right have rejected values of decency and respect and humility and nonviolent protest. Many people hate and cruelly attack their opponents, returning physical or verbal violence with the same. But it's during times of upheaval and suffering, however, that I believe we must all the more heed our better angels. We must resist, of course, but the message of Jesus and of the film Cool Hand Luke is that resistance must be wise, creative, and continually nonviolent. When confronted with anger and hate, resistors must symbolically turn the other cheek by responding with peaceful ways of opposition. And I pray that in this election season, we, all of us, resist authoritarianism with passion and with commitment, but never with violent words or deeds. We must resist by giving our time and our resources. We must resist by voting and helping to make sure that others are able to vote too. We must resist by supporting a free and truthful press. We must resist by peaceful protest and never submitting to unjust authority, even to the point of sacrificing our personal well-being. Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Jacob Blake, Daniel Prude, and countless other Black men and women have themselves sacrificed themselves on the cross of resistance to oppression. Other men and women throughout American history have fought and died in our nation's several wars, and they have sacrificed themselves in their own way. And we, too, are called to sacrifice. But let us non-violently resist and sacrifice by asking the question, what would Jesus, Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr. do? My prayer, along with all of you, is that resistance be peaceful, nonviolent, and filled with decency and respect and, yes, love, even for those who disagree with us. and I do wish each and all of you much peace. Thank you for listening to me this morning.
Thank you, Michael and Alan. That was really, really wonderful talk. Thank you, Doug. This next part of our service is a really important one now, particularly since we're not all there and can easily respond to the baskets passing us by. And so while Michael plays Fortunate Son, we hope that you take a little bit of a time to either do an online donation or to go ahead and send a check in so that you can continue support the work of our fellowship. And if you're a first-time guest to our service, please don't feel obligated to give. The gift of your presence is gift enough. Michael?
All right, this is Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival. Some folks are born made to wave the flag. Oh, they're red, white, and blue. And when the band plays hail to the chief, oh, they point the cannon at you. And it ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no senator's son, son. It ain't me, it ain't me. Oh, I ain't no fortunate one. Some folks are born silver spoon in hand. Oh, they don't help themselves. But when the tax man comes to their door, oh, the house looks like a rummage sale. And it ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no millionaire son. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one. Some folks are born with star-spangled eyes. Oh, they send you down a wall. And when they ask you how much can you give, oh, they only answer more, more, more. It ain't me, it ain't me. Oh, I ain't no military son, son. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one.
Thank you, Michael. That was a blast. You sure bring a lot of joy to our service, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
And moving now to joys and concerns. And first off, Mel, we're so glad to see you. So I hope that means you're feeling better and on the mend. And if anybody else has something that you want to share as a joy or a sorrow during this time, please raise your hand or otherwise indicate, and we'll all watch so we can figure out who's saying yes.
And you can just unmute yourself too, so you don't need to wait for me to do it or anything.
There's Jack. Go ahead.
I have a joy. Our younger daughter, Hannah, and her fiance, after being together many years and buying a house and all kinds of things, are finally going to get married. So that's going to happen October 3rd in Washington Park. So we're happy about that.
Hey,
Awesome.
that's great, Jack. That'll be such fun. And October 3rd is always a beautiful day since it's my birthday too.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. Cool.
Any other thoughts? Or Pete, go ahead. Can you unmute him, Mike?
Yeah,
He's
I
got it.
just want to mention a sorrow. Mary Pennicoff recently passed
Oh, no. Really?
a week or so ago, and some of you may remember her participation with us playing the
Absolutely.
piano, and although not a member of the congregation, she was closely linked to the gathering.
Oh, wow.
Her
Yes,
obituary is in the Inquirer this morning, so
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Thanks for letting me know. That's, wow.
I also wanted to let everyone know that Phyllis is still on the mend and doing much better. So Doug had spoke to her not too long ago. So if anyone has a chance to give her a call or drop a note, I think that would be great too. And for those of you who don't know, Adrienne Campbell was on a leave to have her hip replaced. And she's done so well with all of her rehab and recovery that she's back early. So I did chat with her just briefly the other day, and she really sounded great. So anything else that people wanted to share? We don't hear much from Ian on his start of college. But he did say the other day that they did concede that those kids that are living in the same, kind of pod, suite, whatever you call it, could actually sit down and eat together. And I think it's an exceedingly lonely existence, even though they're all lonely together, because they stay in their rooms for classes and they eat by themselves. So now they're very excited. They have an opportunity to do something with somebody else. So this will be a weird year for everyone, but particularly for those young people that are trying to, kind of set a new path, and there's nobody that's ever walked this path. So
Is that a public school, Lindsay?
oh, he's up at Case Western. He started at college. He had a gap year last year and is gap year this year. I mean, college year this year. Carol?
Alex called this week and was really, really excited, and we're really excited. He's now in his second year of law school, and he's gotten selected to be a fellow on the board of the ACLU Ohio, and this is just exactly why he went to law school. So he's really, really pleased, and
That's awesome.
he had all day Saturday, and he's like texting me, "This is so cool." So it's actually coming together finally for him.
We need him. Diane, did you have something else? No, okay.
No, I was just clapping.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. And we'll place this symbolic stone for all those joys and sorrows left unsaid. And before we move to our last hymn, I would like to ask Jack and Carol and Pete to talk just a minute about some of the efforts that we're undertaking to support voting this fall, because if anyone else is interested in joining in, they really are easy and helpful. So Jack, you want to kick it off, my friend?
Actually, I've
Okay.
got this, although if I can share slides, I can,
Carol, why don't you kick it off and then,
I'll
Okay,
kick it off
good.
and then throw it right to Jack.
all right. And then I'll throw it to Pete.
Mike, can you put Carol's screen up?
Or can you just give me access? Yeah.
You got
Awesome.
co-host now.
Okay, hold on. I have to get there too. Not now. Not now. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Smooth as sailing. There we go. Let's try that. All right, this is a quick effort we put together, and it's just going to be some highlights of things about the election and what GNH and folks are doing. So just thanks for your time. So Jack, Pete, Lindsay, y'all have been involved. MJ, I don't know, MJ, who else is on too, but maybe each of you could say a couple of sentences about what you've been doing toward the election and what it's meant to you, especially because I think that's an important perspective. Why you're doing it and what it means to you.
Well, I'm doing it, and I haven't done as much as some other people or as much as I could, but when November 3rd arrives, I want to feel like I've tried at least as hard as I could to try to affect the outcome. And I don't think it's any secret that trying to get all these people to vote, that most of them are going to vote Democratic. So this Vote Forward effort, you can see it there on the screen, votefwd.org. It's really pretty easy. You get on there, you sign up, they will send you a file of letters that you can print out along with instructions. And Pete's going to talk about that a little more, about the actual process. But I think a few people recently, in recent days, haven't reported on what they've done, so I may be a little bit low here. But I think we're well on the way already to having like 300 letters prepared for mailing. And I also just want to highlight this Thursday, I think it is, September 17th, there is a national UU Get Out the Vote phone bank that you can participate in. And anybody that wants to do that and can't figure out how, I can send you a link. But it's 4 to 6 p.m. Thursday the 17th. And you just got to call some people and they'll give you a little training first on what to say. We're all pretty smart. It's not that hard. Okay, Pete. Thanks, Ralph. I think Ralph just sent out something on the chat here about the phone.
I can't change my name, Jack. It's still me.
Okay. Go ahead, Pete.
Okay, well, I'm just going to take you through the process. We need more people to be sending out the letters, and there's only a small handful right now doing it. It's really quite simple. You go on the website that was mentioned there, voteforward.org, VOTEFWD.org, and register, and you get a set. I'm going to hold this stuff up, which you won't be able to read, but just to give you an idea of what it's about. You get a set of instructions that you can print out or continue online, and they will take you right through the process. So part of that is choosing a campaign that you're going to be involved with, which is our campaign, GNH. Then you have the opportunity to choose either 5 letters at a time or 20 letters at a time. And depending on how ambitious you feel, I personally have been getting 20 at a time. And it will then download those to you for printing. And what you get is a list of all the people's names that you're going to get letters for this time, and as well as each letter. Now the letters are pre-printed. They're all identical. I know you can't see this very well, but there's a space in it for you to interject your own thoughts. And it says, I vote in every election because, personally, you write your own. I just said, the threats to our democracy are real and we need to fight for equal rights for all Americans. And so with that, you're ready to start on preparing the 20 letters, and you personalize them, dear so-and-so, you insert that personal message, sign it, and then you have envelopes to prepare. And I kind of do it assembly line. I do all the letters, then I go through and do all the addresses. And the address they send is not your address, but the return address is to, I guess it's the headquarters of this vote forward. So if something doesn't get delivered, it goes back to them rather than back to you. So prepare all those and then do all the addresses and then stamps. And they ask you to use a blue pen because it's a little more personal than black. And then you pick your own stamps. I get Marvin Gaye stamps, which look like this or similar. And so, it takes probably at most an hour and a half to go through the whole process. And so you do 20, and then when you're feeling ambitious, you do 20 more and 20 more and so forth. These aren't to be mailed until they're recommending a week before the election. We're a little concerned about mail deliveries these days. So it's been talking about moving that date back a little bit to make sure they get delivered. So that's pretty much the process. It's pretty easy. And we encourage some more volunteers for it.
I'll just put in real quickly here that these people running this, they've done studies that really show that this is an effective way to get out the vote, that as effective as anything in raising the level by a few percentage points within an area of how many people vote. And postage is available through the church if that is an issue for anybody.
Issue. I look at it as a contribution to the campaign, so I just buy my own stuff, but you can do whatever you want. And these are all registered voters. The idea is just get them out there and make sure they vote.
And they know their records of not being regular, frequent voters, but they are registered. That's great. I have a few more slides. And Lindsay, did you want to add 2 sentences about your participation?
Well, I was just going to say that I actually have recruited a couple of other family members who were kind of articulating their frustration about the election, but kind of didn't have a place to go with it. So I would suggest also that you feel free to share that with other people who are looking for something that they can do it's truly easy peasy.
This is MJ.
Hey, MJ.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I've actually been working on this from a different sort of angle. I had worked for Claymont County as a precinct person for about 10 years or more. And I called because I thought Sean was going to try and work again. He worked about 5 or 6 years, but he's not going to be able to do that. They do need people to work to do the processing for the mail-in voting, which means opening up the envelopes and getting things ready to be counted. It is not counting the vote, which can't happen until election day, but that processing is actually a job, and they are recruiting people to do that. And I've been assured that they're going to be doing social distancing and things like that. So if they choose me, they'll pay us to do that. So I would say if you've worked in the precincts before, and you're not comfortable with being in place with so many people, that might be another place that you could work to help the system to continue to work, because the mail-in voting is coming in very, very strong, and there's lots and lots and lots of things to do. The other thing I've made sure that I've been doing is knowing exactly what the rules are and where those drop-in ballot boxes are. So for all of you in Hamilton County, if you do not know, it's on Smith Road, right near Montgomery Road, in front of the Bureau of Elections in Hamilton County. And that's where ballots can be deposited without having to go through the mail. But if you do that, it has to be yourself or a family member. So giving rides to people to take their ballot there is another important thing that we can look forward to. You cannot take anybody else's. That's called harvesting when it comes to balloting. You can bring multiple requests for ballots, but when a ballot comes, you can only bring your own or a close family member to deposit it in that box. So think about what you might be able to do to help people to get their ballots to the box, which can happen anytime after the votes go out. The ballots actually go out on October 6th, and you can return them anytime after that. Lastly, my biggest concern, and I would put it to anybody who has young adults in their families, is to make sure that your young adults in particular have their registration, because they are a group of people that are transient. They move around all the time. So pretty much since the last election, 4 out of the 5 kids that I call my own are in different places. So their registration is no longer valid. So getting them involved enough to get their registration in on time is an important thing. And so think about the folks in your own life, and if they're at college and all the things that they have to do to make that happen. The college Get Out the Vote programs are probably not going to be as strong given COVID. So this is a huge thing for us to think about. And if nothing else, that group wants to vote on climate change. So get them out there doing that. And then lastly, that's the only other thing I wanted to say. Some of those mechanics are really important.
Okay, I'm going to go over a little bit of the mechanics because things are a little different this year. And thanks so much, MJ and Lindsay and Pete and Jack. Really appreciate y'all's work and your updates. Okay. Again. Oh, hold on a second. Let's go back to the top. Okay, so we just did this one. And this will go pretty quick. So we talked about Vote Forward. I've got a bunch of stuff that I'll hit paste on in the chat in just a minute so that you guys can download the chat if you want, and all the links will be in it. But so the first thing you got to do is register. And the question I'll ask is, are you registered? But everybody says, yeah, I'm registered. But are you really registered? Have you moved? Have you even possibly been accidentally purged? It's kind of scary, but it has happened more than once. Like thousands of people, at least 1,000 people were accidentally purged earlier this spring. So please confirm. You can even do it often. I do. Roughly 1 in 10 think they are registered, but they have issues. And confirming is so easy. If you go to OH-Votes, Ohio, ohvotes.org, you can sign up for reminders. You can check your voter registration. Just put in your first name, your last name, the year you were born, and your county. And then if you want, you can put in your email and your phone number and check off a box, and you'll get text reminders, and you'll get, or email reminders, whichever you prefer. You can also, my experience with ohvotes.org, it works really fast. It works very clearly. And the website's really easy to remember. Just confirm your voter registration. There's lots of information on that website. But you can also go, if occasionally the link doesn't work to the Secretary of State website, so if you go straight to the Secretary website, that works. Or the County Board of Elections is another way to do it. County Board of Elections, they want like your street and your street house number and your street address and whether it's a road, and it's a little bit more involved. The Secretary of State website's been slimmed down and is quite efficient also as like OH Votes. So definitely confirm your voter registration. In fact, MJ was talking about if you have a student, a child or a nephew or a cousin or a niece who's a student, it's a great idea to just, you can check if they're an Ohio voter, you could check their voter registration because you know the year they're born, and you can just say, hey, y'all moved recently, maybe you haven't updated yet. It's really easy to check, and you can do it for your family and friends without a lot of difficulty. And on the Secretary of State website, actually, you don't even need the year of birth, so it's just first name, last name, and county. So if somebody finds that they're not registered, maybe they checked both websites and they checked a couple of different versions of their name and they're not website, there's two easy ways to register. One is online, and you can do that both through the ohvotes.org or through the Secretary of State or through the county website. And when you're doing it online, you do need both the last four of your social security number and your state ID number, either your driver's license or regular state ID. And they'll pull your signature from your state ID. So that works out pretty well for a lot of folks, very, very efficient, quick, and it's a little tricky to do it on a telephone, but if you have a tablet or a laptop or a computer, that works great. If you, however, have changed your name or you don't have maybe a state ID, then filling out the paper form is a very accessible option. The public library has copies of the form, as well as, and you can also use, if you have a copy of your bank statement or utility bill with both your name and address on it, those are ways without the state ID or your social security. But why would you do that? Again, if you're not listed, if you've moved, you've changed your address, if you've changed your name, if you've gotten married or for other reasons changed your name. In some cases, the signature on file might be 10 years old if you've been one of those great, or 20 years old or more, if you've been a regular voter and you've got an older registration in there. If you find that your handwriting has changed significantly, it's not the worst idea to go ahead and re-register, but you would need to do a paper copy so the signature can get updated.
Carol, can I add something?
Yeah, please, Pete.
If you're a registered voter, the Secretary of State recently, within the last few weeks, sent out a ballot application form to all registered voters.
I'm going to get to that.
You've gotten that from Frank LaRose, Secretary of State. If you didn't, that would suggest that you're not registered.
Good point. Good point. So there are three options for voting. Early voting, options 1 and 2 are by mail. By mail is the same thing as absentee in Ohio. There's no real difference. And that can be by US Postal Service, or it can be dropping it off at the Board of Elections for early voting. And that was what MJ was talking about, that for your absentee ballot application, you can do that. A friend can turn that in for you. That's no problem. You can send that by mail. But if you're doing it vote by mail ballot, where you actually have the ballot in hand, you or a family member needs to take that to the Board of Elections or put it in the mail. So another option for early voting is in person. That has to be done at the single location in your county at the Board of Elections. And then, of course, the traditional voting on Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd at your assigned polling location, which may have changed. If it was in a retirement community or a healthcare facility, it's very likely to have changed. So it's always important to double check. They usually send the postcard with that. But again, all of this is going to happen come October or November. Right now, September is the time to apply for voting early, by mail or absentee. Print out and complete and mail or drop off an absentee ballot application. If you haven't already done it, and I'm hoping you guys can raise your hands or say, yes, you've already done it, but you can get that absentee ballot application online. You can get it in the mail, like Pete was just saying. There's numerous, I think I've got 3 or 4 of them sitting in envelopes that have just arrived in the mail. But again, those are coming to us who are registered voters. If you know somebody who just registered, they probably haven't gotten one. So if you give them the blank form, they can fill it out for themselves, and especially if they don't have access to a printer readily. Again, the library has copies of both voter registration and absentee ballot applications. And of course, at the Board of Elections, you can get numerous copies if you're working with a population that may not have ready access to any of these other options. So there might be a little source of confusion. There are many different currently circulating absentee ballot applications. They all can work, but it is kind of confusing. These are just 4 samples. The one here on the right, I'm sorry, on the left is the one that Hamilton County, similar. The only difference in this one says, it says exactly what the date is, November 3rd, 2020. So if you have one of these lying around from previous elections, make sure that this information gets updated, because you could use it, but you definitely need to cross that out and confirm that it's updated. The Secretary of State one that Pete just mentioned looks like this. They all say form, there's this one, the Secretary of State one says 11A, and both in these ones, this is the traditional old one that the Secretary of State used. It's a little bit cumbersome. That you can tell, looks like the Secretary of State has modeled it a little bit closer to to our Hamilton County one, though it still has a lot of options here. And every time there's extra options, there's likelihood that somebody might make a typo. So again, if you're working with somebody, trade applications and go over it for each of you and make sure that you put your birth date here and the day here and the county and not the country. And they're little things that people kind of get, if they're in a hurry, they're easy to get mixed up. And then Butler County has something also similar to but they each one. And the important thing about the county ones is they have the mailing address for the county that they're from. The Secretary of State ones tend to say, send it to the Secretary of State. I've heard directly from the Board of Elections that is not encouraged. Please send it directly to your Hamilton County Board of Elections or your Butler County Board of Elections, or whichever one applies to you. And that way it'll get there a lot faster. And the earlier it gets there, sorry?
I said, or Warren County.
And the earlier it gets there, the time. Or Warren County or Claremont. I've got information on all 4 of those. Thank you. Okay, so they're all the same, but just need one. But to track it, once you county, Butler County, Warren County, Claremont County Board of Elections website, and here at the Hamilton County site, this is just as soon as you log into that vote hamiltoncounty.ohio.gov, this is what it looks like. And if you look right there, there's the track absentee ballot. That says ballot. It also applies to the absentee application. And then they'll ask for which election it is, your name, your birth date, and then they'll show you, here's your ballot status. And it says application received by what date. And it won't say process, because the processing doesn't occur until October 6th, which is when they'll all be mailed out, or maybe it's going to be the 5th or 6th, but they get mailed out on the 6th. And so October 6th is when they get mailed out, so you should see them in your mailbox sometime by the 10th, maybe the 12th. Could take more than a week these days. I've heard people literally having 3 weeks waiting on mail. But as soon as it comes, you really want to fill it out and get that back in the mail, or even more ideal, perhaps, is drop it off at the drop box, which is a 24/7 camera protected specialized ballot box at any of these Board of Elections offices. So that was voting 1, absentee. Voting 2 option early is in person at your Board of Elections. So the advantage is you can show up and vote when lines are short, and you can use either your regular ID, or you can use the same ID that works with the absentee form, which might include just your social security number or a utility bill. So there's lots of flexibility about voting there, and it will, some folks have questions about whether absentee ballots get counted, and it turns out they actually get run through the machine as soon as they arrive, and then the night of the election, as soon as elections close, they push the button and those numbers are in there first. Now, if it arrives after 7:30 or after that election evening, it won't get counted probably for 10 days, but it will be part of the final count. So absentee ballots do get counted. Disadvantage of voting early in person is if you have an issue with transportation, but I encourage you to bring a friend or offer a ride to a neighbor. I know COVID times people are concerned about that. I would encourage you to roll your windows down, wear your masks, lots of air circulation, and you should be good. And you're doing a public service there too. So again, early voting in person at the Board of Elections or on election day. This summary here has all of the things you need to know. And this is targeted to Hamilton County, but these dates and times are statewide. They're not changing. So again, last day to register. You can register at your Bureau of Motor Vehicles. You can register at a public library. You can register online or a new registration if you have the state ID, or an address change. And that can be done online until 11:59 p.m. on October 5. Then October 6 is when the early voting, either in person or those ballots start getting mailed out for absentee ballots. And but you do need to apply for the absentee ballot or the vote by mail. Those are the same thing. And then of course, election day across the state, polls will be open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And this is just a little bit more information. The Greater Cincinnati Voter Collaborative, I said coalition here, I'm wrong. I'm going to have the link for that in the chat. If you want to sign up, you can go to Safe to Vote at Home, and that is different ways of voting by helping the elections, either by in-person activities, texting activities, or phoning activities, or a whole range of possibilities, and of course the letter writing that Jack and Pete described so well. And if you know somebody who says, I'm not eligible to vote because I committed a felony, I was in jail or in prison, that's really not true. This is important information. If you've been convicted of a crime, you are eligible to vote, even if incarcerated as a misdemeanor. So if you know somebody in jail, they're eligible. You can talk to them, get them in forms, help them figure out, ask me, I get help on that issues. And if they are serving time if they have been convicted of a felony, then as long as, if they're not incarcerated, they are eligible to vote right now. And if they are currently incarcerated, as soon as they're released, they can re-register and be eligible to vote. And I've got more details on that. The ACLU's got fabulous information. If you're interested in helping in that area, please let me know too. And as MJ said so poignantly, I mean, climate change is on the ballot. Cincinnati Justice is on the ballot. This is a poem: walls rise, burning skies, human fears, earth tears. Make a choice. I can't see, I got things from school. Raise your voice, vote, or volunteer. And I think, and then like I said, there's a whole bunch of links here, and I'm just gonna hit, and y'all have been really patient. So I appreciate that. I'll hit send and I'll put a bunch of stuff. And one of the ways I'm participating in the election, I'm doing some organizing, obviously, but I'm also, I'm going to be a poll worker. I just feel like that's a risk worth taking for an election as important as this. So if you click on the 3 dots in the bottom right where it says more, you can download the chat, and that will give you a text file under a Zoom folder for this particular thing that has all those links in it, and you can just cut and paste.
Carol, what can you go ahead and just send around that deck that you've done, because we are so
I'm sorry.
I think we'll end up wrapping up pretty quickly because we're about 15 minutes over. So if you could go ahead and send that around, that would really be great. So thank you all for your time. Let's quickly, Michael, are you okay if we just skip the last hymn? I'm sorry, but we're so over time wise.
It's
You're all
fine.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then just quickly some closing words. May you know love, the kind that makes you better, that challenges you to grow. Walk in loving kindness, and you will feel the invisible tether that connects us all. May you live a life of purpose. Seek knowledge from young and old, different and same, gentle and sharp. Live with your eyes wide open. See the beauty, the goodness, the miracles, but also the struggle. Dare yourself to make a difference in the world. May you notice divinity in unlikely places. Stand in awe of the world around you and find wisdom in both the sunshine and the rain. Pause, breathe, listen. The trees will tell you secrets if you let them. Let them. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and we look forward to Anne next week with her talk. And thank you all for coming.
And I'm happy to answer questions. I'll put my phone number in the chat.